video is on how to find slope given 2 points. So previously we discussed in the last video that slope is how steep a line is. And the steeper the line, the harder it is if we were to climb. Like if we had a wheelchair ramp here, that it makes that you could have different steepness. And the closer the ramp is to zero, the closer the slope is to zero, the easier it would be to climb. So for example, this slope here, this would be difficult to climb because it is very vertical. It would be harder to climb than a slope that is like a flat line, like when we're walking around on a road that's flat. It's easier to walk than climbing up something that is vertical. So in the last video we talked about how to find slope on a graph. So if we take a look here, to find slope on a graph, what we did was we picked 2 points that intersected, and then we found the rise and the run. Well, instead of finding slope on a graph, we're going to be given the 2 points, and we're not going to have a graph so we're not going to be able to count how much we have to rise and how much we have to run, move left or right. So instead, we're going to use the slope formula, and this is the formula for slope. And in the slope formula, you'll notice that we are going to subtract the y values. y2 minus y1. That just represents that we're going to have 2 points. So this is x and this is y. This is the x value, this is the y value, this is x and this is y. So we're going to have 2 y values. So that's what the 1 and the 2 represent, that there's 2 y values, because there's 2 points. Then we're going to have, in the denominator, we're going to subtract the x values. So we have 2 x values, so this one will be 1 and this one will be 2. So all that formula is saying is to subtract the y's in the numerator and subtract the x's in the denominator. Okay, so this formula is saying to subtract the y values in the numerator and subtract the x values in the denominator. So, if we take a look here, we have the points 4, 3, and 2, 1. So this formula is saying to take y2, so this value right here, 1, and subtract this y value, 3. And then to take x2 and subtract x1. And then we get 1 minus 3, 3 is bigger, so negative 2. 2 minus 4, 4 is bigger, so negative 2. And negative 2 divided by negative 2 is positive 1. So that means m, the slope, is positive 1. Now, I've graphed the line. First of all, it's positive 1. And you could see that the line from the left to the right, as we talked before, we always read a graph from the left to the right, it's going up. So we are correct that the slope should be positive. So the graph goes upward because the slope is positive. Now, if we were to do the slope using rise over run, we would count 1, 2, and then 1, 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1, and it's positive because it's going up. So this is what we did last time, and this is what we're doing now. We're using the formula. However, I have no idea why they write the formula this way, why it has to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. When I do these problems, I actually do this. I do y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. So instead of doing it this way, I just flipped everything, and you actually get the same answer. So if I redo this and instead I use y1, and it just makes sense, it's first. So I use the first y value and I subtract the second y value, and then the first x value, subtract the second x value, you still get 1. So this is what I'm going to use. So you could use either one of these, but I prefer y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. That's what I'm going to prefer. So that's what I'm going to use to solve the remaining problems. So if we take a look at example 2, so we have our formula here. We have the 2 points, so I'm going to label x, y, x, y. So this formula, all this formula says is to subtract the y's. So no matter what, the problem is going to have subtraction here. And then we're going to subtract the y's. And notice I circle them so I don't accidentally use the same number twice. And then I'm going to subtract the x's. So 2 minus 5. So 6 minus 4 is 2. 2 minus 5, 5 is bigger, so negative 3. So 2 and 3 can't be simplified. And a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So the slope is negative 2/3. And because the slope is negative, if we were to graph these 2 points, so if we were to do a sketch to check if this is really negative, and we were to graph 2 and then we go to 6, and then we graph 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we go to 4, you will notice the line would go down. So because the slope is negative, the graph of these points here, the line with those points, would go down because the slope is negative. And remember, you could always on a test or when you're working on your homework, if you want to verify your answer, draw a sketch of your points. Okay, so let's take a look at the next problem here. So to find slope, I'm going to use this formula right here, which just says subtract the y's. So 3 minus 3, and then 5 minus, and that's a negative 4. So 3 minus 3 is 0. 5 minus negative 4, that makes 9. And 0 divided by anything is 0. So when I see a slope of 0, I know that means my slope is going to be a horizontal line, because it will horizontal line for 0. It will be if I was snowboarding, I'm not going up, I'm not going down, I'm just going flat across. So that represents 0. I'm not going up, I'm not going down, I'm just walking across. So the slope is 0, and it would be horizontal, the line. Okay, let's take a look at the next example here. So 2 minus negative 4, because we are going to subtract the y values, and then we're going to subtract the x values. So 1 minus 3. 2 minus negative 4 makes 6, and 1 minus 3 is negative 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Positive divided by negative is a negative. So the slope of this line is negative 3. So if the slope is negative, that means from the left to the right it goes down. So that is what this slope would kind of look like. So it's going downward because the slope is negative. Okay, we got 2 more to go. So the formula says to subtract the y's, find the difference between the y values. So negative 3 minus 0. And then we're going to subtract the x's. So negative 1 and 5. So negative 3 minus 0 is negative 3. And negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6. So we're going to always leave our answer simplified. So 3/6 simplifies to 1/2. And a negative divided by a negative equals a positive 1/2. So the slope is positive 1/2, and because the slope is positive, if we were to graph these points, if we were to graph them, so we go to -1 and then down to 3, and then we go to +5, 0. When we graph them, because this is a positive 1/2, the line goes up. It is positive from the left to the right. It is an upward line. It is positive. Okay, one last example here. So our formula says to subtract the y's. Find the distance in the y values here. And in the denominator, subtract the x values. So 4 minus -1, that's 5. 2 minus 2 is 0. So 5 divided by 0, 0 times what is 5? That's not possible. This is a slope of undefined. And my little way of remembering this is that the 0 is under. So because the 0 is under, it's in the denominator, undefined. Under, undefined. Now, if we were to graph this, we should know that if a slope is undefined, that you would be buried under the snow if you were snowboarding. It will make a vertical line. Now, if we weren't sure and we were stuck, if we were to graph these points, so we would go to 2 and draw a little sketch, 2, 4, and then 2, -1 is here, you will see that it makes a vertical line if you graph those points.